One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. Together.
And welcome back to the True Patriot podcast, folks. We are in season 2 here, and this is a cool one. This is our very first episode of season 2, and we have a special one for you. This one's going to be all about fishing, man. That is the total topic we're talking about here. We are doing a preview of the upcoming Bassmaster Classic, and to bring in some expert knowledge in these cases, my friend and one of the leading members of our True Patriot Outfitters Anglers Network, Mr. Jason Cushland. Jason, thanks a ton, dude, for joining us here.
No problem. Thanks for having me on. And I don't know about expert, but I follow along anyway.
Well, like we were just talking off air. I mean, I admittedly, and people know this, I admittedly follow, very tightly and closely with the MLF. I know several of the guys, that compete over there. And bass, obviously with the podcast, I have to stay plugged in, but that's really your wheelhouse, man. You stay plugged in with the bass, you compete in the bass series. I mean, that's been a lifelong thing for you, right?
Yeah, I've been fishing the bass stuff for quite a while. I mean, I haven't really done like actual full on like club stuff, but I've been fishing the team trail stuff and following bass for a long time. And I still fish MLF stuff. We fit, the BFL stuff like that. So that I'm going to continue to fish, probably fish some Toyota series down the line. But if I had to pick one that I wanted to end up in, it'd be the BASS stuff.
Right.
So.
Well, and that's, for a lot of the folks, that watch here, they're from all over the country. After living up there for 10 years, I was born technically in Minnesota. You're not just, this isn't just a hobby or something you do. I mean, it's a lifestyle for you, dude. You're an avid outdoorsman. You hunt, you fish, you trap. I don't know. Do you club things? I mean, the great, the great up north, man, it's a part of your life, up in that area. So yeah, no, I
do a lot of traveling, man. I travel for fishing. I travel for hunting out of multiple states for fishing, multiple states for hunting deer and turkeys. I mean, I do everything.
That's awesome.
It gets expensive, but
it doesn't it though? Yeah.
Yep. I might not die a millionaire, but I'll have some memories.
You can't take it with you, man. That's my view. Well, listen, so we're going to go ahead and start jumping into this, folks. What we have here, bass, their Super Bowl. It used to be pretty much the entire industry's Super Bowl. Landscapes changed a little bit, but still for Bass Master themselves, this is their Super Bowl event. It is the biggest. It's one of the most coveted events that a lot of anglers dream of making it to. And for the 2022 Academy Sports and Outdoors Bassmaster Classic presented by Hook, they are going to none other than Lake Hartwell. And they're calling it out of Greenville, South Carolina. The thing about Hartwell, man, is it sits right on the border. It's a big body of water, and it sits right on the border of Georgia and South Carolina. Yeah. So you could choose 2 or 3 towns if you really wanted to, that you could attach this place to. But this is not the first time they've been to Hartwell. This will actually mark the 4th time that the Classic's been at Hartwell.
The 4th time in, I think, 12 years.
Yeah. It's, I think the first one was 2008. Yeah, for sure. So it wasn't too long ago when they first got there. So Lake Hartwell, 56,000 acre lake, right? Like I said before, it's on the border of Georgia, South Carolina. It's like the intersection of like 3 different rivers all come together at this place. The Savannah, the Tugaloo, and the Seneca, they all feed and intersect into this joint. So, I mean, it's like I said before, it is a huge body of water. From everything, I've never fished it. Have you ever made it down in that neck of the woods?
I've never been down there, but from what it sounds like, is it's a lot of clear water.
And from what I've seen out there, it's what'll be in play here is largemouth and spots. Those are the primary two. Just for, me, I'm a stat monkey, dude. I'm always tracking and doing Excel spreadsheets.
Oh, yeah.
But looking into the, one of the deals, so the record largemouth to ever come out of Hartwell is a 12.6. Double digit has come out of there, and the record spot that they have listed at the most recent is like a 5.6 that they've pulled out of there. That would be a monstrous fight, a 5.6 spot. That would be a tug. So yeah, man. So they're going to be there the 4th through the 6th. It's going to be basically a run and gun. We were just talking about what the weather's looking like right now.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are.
I think. Oh, did you lose me?
A little bit, but that's all right. Go for it.
I think it's going to be kind of interesting because their practice is actually a week removed. So their practice, I think, ends tomorrow. Maybe it ended today. And then I think they get a half day on Wednesday. So they started practice back on Friday. And it was actually cold. It was like, I think the highs were low 60s and even mid 50s. And then going into this week, it's going to be a warming trend. I mean, it's fairly stable, but it's going to be upper 60s to mid 70s pretty much all week. And
I can tell you, looking at that weather, dude, it certainly changed one of my picks. We've talked about this. I didn't really let the viewers know. Jason and I are going to pick a couple anglers at the end of this thing here to see kind of our own little in-house fantasy fishing deal here. That weather trend actually adjusted one of my thought patterns on this because it's gonna play. What do you think? I mean, everything that I've looked at has told me that this winter really hasn't been a rough winter for them at all. They had like this little snap, this cold snap come through in January. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, if I was reading these articles correctly, like they had the warmest December in the state's history recorded in Georgia in December of 2021. So, I mean, that's going to affect this, as far as this water temp. The last reading, by the way, at 3:30 Mountain Time today, I got a water temp reading according online of 49 degrees out there.
That's what I saw too.
Yeah.
And I think they're taking that at the dam probably. And I think that's probably going to be the coldest water. I think up in those rivers, up like in the Seneca and the Tugaloo, I think they're a little dirtier water, if I remember right, from what I watched in previous classics. And that's probably going to warm up a little quicker. I don't think they're going to be bedded. It's too early for that. The water temperature is going to be too cold, but I think you're going to see with this warm trend they have and consistent warm weather, I think there's going to be some big fish pushing up shallow. They're not maybe moving up there to bed, but they're going to be moving up there looking to feed.
I would agree 100% in that shallow piece, especially if those 70s, mid to high 70s come in. That's just going to change things. I was going to ask you that. I mean, it's really setting up as a pre-spawn game. But it's like that whole spawning piece, obviously it's not enough time here for that water temp to get where it needs to be for them to really transition. But you got to think that a few are going to be scouting, right? And they're going to be pushing into those areas. Yeah. So
the only thing I was thinking is, if we do have some big fish up shallow for this, I don't know if it would hold for 3 days.
Right.
I don't know if they're going to be able to win all shallow. I think it's going to take a combination of some deep water fish too. Some, like get a limit of spots in the morning and then go hunting bigs during the day. I mean, that's kind of what Jordan Lee did in 18. He started in the morning deep and then moved in shallow, and they had a couple warm days. And by the final day, there's a bunch of fish pushed into the pockets on docks. But I think that's going to be kind of similar to what we see. I think docks are going to be a big player. I think that buckbrush, they got a lot of buckbrush in that thing. I think that's going to play depending on how deep the water is. I haven't looked at the lake levels compared to previous classics, but I think it's pretty close.
I was going to say, I'm not seeing anything online that indicated low levels or extremely high. So I'm guessing, but I admittedly have not looked at previous years, to see where
Right.
they're at.
So I think there's going to be, a shallow bite for sure. I just don't know if they can make it last for 3 days, unless there's continual fish pushing in every day, which is possible with the weather they're going to have, but I think it's going to take a mix of deep and shallow fish.
Well, and it makes it puts into play also how much water are these guys, to be in contention, how much water are they going to need to cover? Right. I mean, like you're saying, these areas are probably going to get gassed in some of these, situations. And it makes you wonder, does that mean a guy's got to cover just, 20, 30, 40 miles worth of lake to keep finding that, reoccurring pattern, or can he find a section of, of the lake and ride it for 3 days?
Right. Well, I think the weather's going to set up somewhat similar to what they had in 18. And I know Christie, he ran shallow chatterbait bite on buckbrush and stuff like that. And his areas fizzled on him the final day. Yep. And he ended up not weighing a limit, and it cost him the classic by 1.5 pounds or 2 pounds or whatever it is. And Jordan Lee, he started deep and then moved in, and he happened to come into the right pocket where they were pushing in. I mean, the water was right, and there were fish on every dock he fished pretty much, but.
Well, and that versatility piece, I mean, flat out, that's what, the man from your neck of the woods up there, Fighter, that's how he brought home an Angler of the Year title. Is he didn't get stuck in any one area. He fished the way he wanted to fish. And if you're going to fish in the natural waters up north there and cut your teeth, you're going to learn offshore. You're going to learn in the grass. You're going to learn it all, if you want to play that. And that's really what he did. So it makes you wonder what other guys, that are feeling the steam right now can actually put that together and make that happen.
Right. He's actually one I think you might need to watch for this tournament. Right. And he's a shallow water guy, but people that fished with him around here, I mean, he does good. He does good with that mid-depth cranking and stuff like that. He won Angler of the Year on St. Clair, the Angler of the Year tournament that they had there in St. Clair. He was throwing a crankbait, I think a DT10, and catching smallies. I mean, he's really good around docks. He's good shallow.
I was going to say
a good cranker. So, I mean, if they're pushing up, man, he could be one to really watch.
Don't forget that hair jig. He keeps that so quietly in his holster. You know what I mean? It's like he's
really good with it.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, for sure.
I wouldn't have him make a rod for it for nothing.
Exactly. So, of the 52 classics that have occurred, we're on classic number 53 this year. Of the 52, only 5 times has what they would call the hometown, angler, has that ever really panned out. Mm-hmm. For the first 37 years, no hometown angler ever won a classic.
Yep.
It's happened now 5 times in the past 15 years. I found these stats. I mean, we're still talking less than 10%, right? I mean, this article that I read said, well, the hometown curse is lifted. I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, we're still talking under 10%.
Yeah.
But I started getting into the why. Why would in the most recent years that start to come back into play? I mean, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, my opinions, on the topical side, techniques and the equipment that people are using nowadays are a lot better. There's more people competing, so they're making it up. And then, of course, historical data now is so readily available that it started. And I think we're understanding in comparison. If you go 15 years back and you look at how many guys were doing this nonstop compared to what are doing it now. Mm-hmm. Especially with the MLF, creating the additional spots. I mean, because not for nothing, we got a lot of guys in the classic this year that go back to 2019, which was the last time that, all the group was together. We didn't hear about a lot of these guys that are fishing in it now.
Right.
So we have so many more of these guys that are getting a chance. So I think those things are playing. What are your thoughts on that, if any?
I think I think the hometown thing comes down to the type of lake and sometimes time of year thing. Because you look at Hartwell now, and I believe in 2014, Casey Ashley won an early March event on Hartwell, blew it out by like 13 pounds. The classic, early March, coldest classic ever on record on Hartwell, he won that. And then you look at 2019? They had a elite on Hartwell, and Brandon Cobb, a South Carolina guy, won it. He's a local.
Yep.
And I think part of it comes down, and that was more of a spawning tournament, that one in 19. But I think that the reason why some of these hometown guys are winning these tournaments is when they're cold pre-spawn, they just know more of these offshore spots are holding fish. I mean, you know how long it takes to scan a lake like Hartwell to
Good Lord. Yeah.
find where are these schools historically staging up. I mean, even go up to Mille Lacs here in Minnesota and go find wintering smallmouth and figure out where they're going to be pre-spawn. It's not like you can go do it in 2 days. I mean,
Right.
It's tough. So it takes some time. I think part of that lends itself to the hometown guy having
That's a
a
good
little
point.
bit of an advantage.
Yep.
And a lot of these guys, when they see warm temperatures, they've never been there. They're going to go look for these fish coming up shallow. Well, that's going to put a lot of pressure on them shallow fish. And I think that the guy that knows some of that offshore stuff that can stay away from some of them pressured fish, get himself a solid limit at 12 to 15 pounds, and then move in and just go hunting for a giant that's willing to eat. I mean, I think that's definitely going to be a benefit for somebody that knows the lake.
That's sound logic. Yeah. That's absolutely, I mean, and especially when you have, a field full of, guys that have, waited their whole life to get here, you know what I mean? And
Right.
whether they're competing in, Swindell will be what I believe competing. Is he in the field? I believe he is, isn't he?
Yep.
But,
He is.
I thought he is, but that would make that like his 19th classic, that he's going to be going through. So, I mean, you got those guys, or you got guys that are brand new, never been there, so they're getting their
Right.
first shot at it. So, and it brings us to the next piece where we can go ahead and start, really talking about some of the anglers themselves. The big, of course, big story piece here. 4 guys ever in the history of the classic have won it back to back. Now we have several legendary anglers have won, many more than this, but winning it back to back. You got Hank Cherry, defending champ. He's done it back to back. And of course, then you got Jordan Lee, youngest kid to ever do it. Kevin Van Dam and Rick Clunn.
Yep.
So he's in pretty darn good company. And the question is, can he three-peat? What are your, I've got my opinions on this thing. I don't think it's possible. Especially considering if I look at what Cherry's doing right now. I mean, he's not having a bad year, but not for nothing. His first 2 events, he's middle of the pack at best. It doesn't look like he's got some momentum here.
Right.
And I don't know if Hartwell sets up real great for him. He doesn't have a historically, great track record there. But at the same note, if you would have asked, will Hank Cherry, win back to back, I'd have probably said the same thing then. So,
right.
I mean,
well, he's one of those guys that just seems to show up in big events, though.
Doesn't he, though? It's like pressure doesn't get him.
The other thing is he's from North Carolina. He's not that far.
No.
And I think a lot of guys actually would say that this is probably the lake that sets up better for him than his other 2. I mean, realistically,
right.
But if you look at what's going to probably be working there, if there's deep spots and they're going to play, because there's going to be big ones out deep chasing blueback herring. He's really good with a jerkbait. Really good. He designed that Berkeley Stunna. That's what helped him win his last 2 classics. So that's out there. And then he's also, I mean, he's a guy that can go in and he can flip just as good as most guys. I mean,
right.
the odds are very, very low, but I think it's possible.
And he seems, like you said right out the gates, he seems to thrive when that pressure's on. It's like he's got ice in the veins type thing. And that's in our sport, man, that is so freaking important to just stay level-headed. Just keep approaching it like you would any other event. Keep having fun, keep moving. It keeps that focus, it keeps your grounding where it needs to be. And he clearly has that.
Yep. As long as he can not get caught up in the media whirlwind of interviews and stuff like that and not get distracted, I think he's got a shot.
Right. So looking at one of the articles at Bassmaster, they've got him listed. If you're looking into odds, he's a 6-1. Basically, the odds on him basically is what they're putting him at.
It's not horrible.
No, it's not. It's better than a lot out there. They've got him pretty equal with like Polinick, Scott Martin, of course. Greg Hackney's a 5-1.
Yeah. What do they have Porosnik at?
Yeah, Porosnik is one you definitely don't want to get caught sleeping on, especially for this thing. This guy's battle tested. He's a 3-1.
He's taken 5th place in 2015 Classic there and in 2018, 5th place both times.
Yep. Now, Porosnik, I'll tell you, in his short stint with the MLF, he was a force to be reckoned with in that format. I mean, this dude is just a flat out hook. I mean, he catches, doesn't matter the format. He catches fish. So yeah, I could, that would not be a guy I'd want to bet against.
Yeah. What do they, just curiosity, what do they have the odds for Christie at?
Jason Christie.
It was his to win last time, and he let it slip away on him.
He's 4-1, and I'll tell you what. I'll openly say this right now. He's one of my picks, absolutely, because. So Christie, he was very successful in the bass world. He came over with the MLF push, decided to move back, and openly had said, it was a scheduling piece for him. The way the format worked better for him to for his scheduling, to stay over there with bass. And so last year, him being forced to sit it out and only work the expo. I mean, he described that as basically, getting kicked to the head. Basically, it was just on him. So this guy, and he's actually had a pretty good start to get rolling, this year. Yeah, I really think Christie is one to keep an eye on, because I think this guy's motivated, and he's one of the best hooks we've seen in the sport in the last 15 years for sure. He's
another guy that shows up big in classics, man.
Yeah,
he's had 2 seconds, I think, in classics. He took second to Evers on Grand Lake, and that was another one that he was sitting in really good shape. And well, Evers went and caught 30 pounds on him, but he only weighed 4. That was one he slipped up on. So I don't know, man. I think he's going to be hungry for it, especially after what happened to him on Hartwell last time. I mean, he lost by 1.5 pounds and went into the final day with a 6-pound lead.
Yep.
So I think he's going to be hungry for that one big time.
So in looking back over this, I do think it's notable to say this. So this is the 4th time they've been at Hartwell for the Classic. 2008 was won by Elton Jones Sr. 2015, Casey Ashley won it in 2015 at Hartwell. And then 2018, which you've been talking about, Jordan Lee. One notable piece, though, all of those guys, those are now over at the Bass Pro Tour. So they're not even in this field.
Yeah.
So you've got, this is one of the cool things, there are some negative pieces that come with, the split and the separation piece, but there's also a lot of cool things that come out of it. And one of the things that I can tell you as someone who's trying to stay, especially for the podcast piece, I got to try to stay, unbiased. And right now I have my own personal preference where I like to fish, but it's irrelevant. The cool thing that I like about these Bass Elite fields is it's damn near anybody's game, man. There's a good level playing field of angler quality, that's going on. And literally on any given day, any one of these guys has a legit shot at picking off these things. And I think this classic field is really setting up, in my opinion, to be very much the same. I don't think there's a clear favorite that's going to run away with this thing. And of course this sport, just when you think you got it figured out, it'll, flip a 180 on you, regardless, whatever conditions.
Yeah. And I would say that Brandon Cobb would be really favorable to win this thing, but I don't know if it sets up for his kind of tournament. The last time they were there and he won, it was a full-on spawn. They were sight fishing them, and
he's tough. He's tough to beat shallow and sight fishing. If you look at the history, that dude, he's been doing it a lot longer than people realize too. He's been at this a long time. He's got that baby-faced assassin thing going on. So he looks like he's 16, but he's been, fishing professionally, 16, 20 years. I mean, it's been a while. He's been out there doing it.
Yeah. I think he was with FLW before the split, didn't he? And then he came over.
Yep.
I think so.
Yep. Yeah. When things kind of made their maneuver around, I think he did. And he was also, he still is with Arc Fishing as well.
Yeah.
I'm just looking down through the current standing piece, looking at some of these. So Cobb, what's he looking like this year? So he's got a 28th and a 49th place down in Florida there. I really would anticipate, I would have thought he'd have done a little better, but I don't know, the Harris chain was not playing nice. It was being odd, according to several of those guys.
Yeah.
So let's take a look here. Where do you want me to give you the list of the guys that I think that are going to do good? Absolutely. Yeah.
We've already talked about Christie. I mean, he's a good shallow water guy, and he was right there in 18. It's setting up very, very similar. And I don't think he's going to make the same mistake he made last time. So I think he's going to be one to watch. Patrick Walters has experience on Hartwell. He won the Open there in 2020. And I think he's going to be out throwing a jerk bait on those big spots, looking for those with his live scope. So I think he's going to be someone to keep an eye on. Gerald Swindell had a top 10 in 18, did good there. I think that, and he's good around docks, good shallow. I think he's a guy that, being versatile, could do well if them fish are pushing up shallow. And then we already talked about Prosnick and his finishes and Fighter. And then two other ones I was looking at. Jeff Gustafson will openly say his favorite lake in the whole South is Lake Lanier, chasing those big spotted bass.
Yep.
And he does what he did on the Tennessee River, how he won with his little moping and his Demiki style rig. And I think he's going to be doing the same thing on spots, probably early. And I think he's the type of guy that can go in, get his fish deep. I think he can transition to that shallow water and go look for a big fish on some shallow cover. And then John Cox took a 5th place there in 14, early March. And then he won there in 16. And they're both March tournaments. The one he won in March was a little later in the year. I think that was a little more sight fishing, some sight fishing stuff. But he knows the lake. He's done well there in the past. I wouldn't be surprised to see him doing good too.
So allow me to add in, because you just hit my second pick. That's Cox and Christie are the two that I've got picked for this thing. Everything you just said, and then add to the fact that he is having already a phenomenal year. He is sitting second in the points after two runs. He's got a 7th place and a 4th place finish. This is a walk in the park schedule for him. This dude, people forget, this guy is the road warrior. All right. He pulled off he did 3 major tournament trails last year. He was fishing the Bass Pro Tour, the Tackle Warehouse Pro Circuit, and the Bassmaster Elite Series.
Yep.
This year, he has toned it down to just 2 that he's fishing to make sure that he doesn't run into scheduling conflicts anymore. How
he's gonna actually get to practice.
I was going to say many of those events, he didn't even have practice time. I mean, the guy's, running out of, just on pure adrenaline alone. So for him, to me, this guy, like I said, he's got momentum. This is relatively short turnaround time from the last major event. I mean, some of these guys were able to get home. Some of them, I'm sure, just had to stay on the road. But for him, that's just a walk. That's an everyday thing for John C. Man, that's just there's no issue there at all. And so I just really think that with the momentum he's got, he's one of the most, in my opinion, when momentum's in his favor, that guy can win anywhere in the country at any given time. Right. People have realized that he's not just a shallow water guy. Yes, what he does shallow and how he can take his shallow water game to any place. I mean, freaking Oneida, this guy will kill you and he'll stay in 4 foot of water,
right.
Yeah. And trying to figure that out, I really think that the momentum's going to be on his side.
He's no stranger to big tournaments either. He won a Forest Wood Cup.
Yep. Absolutely.
I think he's definitely one to watch.
Where do you put, the guy that's leading the game right now, David Mullins? I mean, no disrespect, but this is a new name in the top of the, list up here. It's not a household, angler's name, that we hear, the fighters, those guys. Mullins is here, a 4th place and a 5th place. He's leading the points right now. Clearly he's got to have some, ton of confidence going in.
Right.
Do you know anything about this guy?
He was a runner-up for Angler of the Year a couple of years ago. I can't remember who it was to, maybe Polinick.
Okay.
But he was runner-up for Angler of the Year.
Nice.
He's been there. He's been in the mix. But yeah, I would say he's coming off of some really good finishes. He's going to have all the momentum. He's going to be feeling good. You feel like he's fishing clean, making good decisions, stuff like that. When you're in a good frame of mind, man, it goes a long ways. You know that.
Dude, doesn't it? That's our sport. I think, so many sports. I've coached for a lot of years, different sports. Hockey is a big momentum game. Football, huge momentum game. That's, the big play type thing. But I still don't think, even in those other sports, there's just something about pro fishing that when you have that momentum, and it just seems like when wins come and success comes for anglers, it comes in bunches. And that's that, like you just said, it's that mindset. You don't second guess, you follow your gut. The very first thing you think, you go with it. And man, when it's clicking and when it's panning out like that, that makes it tough to beat.
Well, and when things are going well, you don't second guess decisions.
Right.
So, when you're fishing confident, man, it really makes a big difference. And those wins coming in bunches, they come in bunches at all the levels.
Right.
Not just the pro circuit. Any circuit, anywhere in the up and down the ladder. When you've got somebody fishing good and they're fishing confident, they can be tough to beat.
Yeah, it's I think it goes right. They push out that outside chatter, that's going on out there, which has been my biggest Achilles is, not letting that come into, decision making. And when these guys are clicking right. So, out of all the names and so forth, we've not mentioned, I want to touch on, especially just because it's from your neck of the woods up there. We've got a huge Minnesota contingent now that's taking place on the bass scene in the Elite Series. We're talking, and if I miss anybody, clue me in here. Of course, we got Fighter. Yep. We got Austin Felix in there. Now we got Josh Douglas, who's up in the Elite side, and Bob Downey. That's, and I'm trying to think. I think that's
all of them right now.
Yeah, I think that's it.
There's
right
a couple
now.
Wisconsin guys that aren't very far from the border. But yeah, there's a few other Wisconsin guys, and they've been doing actually the rookie of the year leader, that Jay Shakuret. He's from Wisconsin.
Okay.
And he's only 22.
Wow.
And he's cashed checks at both of the last 2 events. And he came from 47th, the last guy in the cut and almost made it to the top 10 to qualify for day 4 on the 3rd day. So he's fishing really good too right now. He's got a big lead for that rookie of the year.
Nice. And it's early on, but like we just got done saying, so when the success comes, it comes in bunches. So when you see that momentum, I think 2 events down this early in the season, I don't think that's too early to say momentum. I mean, if you get a couple good deals like that going, man, that goes. Hit me with your opinion on this guy. So when he made this decision, I couldn't understand it, but it was what it was. Scott Martin.
Yep.
One of, hands down, the most successful FLW anglers of all time. The guy has won a ton of money. It wasn't just a name that he had, but he makes the decision to jump, when the FLW got its boost and was actually going to be put on a platform to actually, have some names in the field to be able to compete. He decides to leave FLW. He goes over. His business decision. I respect every one of those anglers, the guys that left, the guys that went, the guys that stayed. Hey, it's their business. It's their money, not mine. But it just doesn't seem like he's found his stride yet on the bass side. These lakes aren't that different. I mean, there's basically a lot of the same lakes. The pro circuit hits, there's only so many bodies of water around that can hold that kind of field. I mean, is it a deal that he's just kind of a journeyman at this stage of the game, or what do you think is going on with Scott right now?
I don't know. I really think he wants to chase that classic. I think that's part of it. I mean, he's been pretty vocal about that. And then also, I don't know, there's been a few guys that have been a little bit vocal about the way they've done with the MLF side for qualifying to get to the BPT. There's been a few people that have maybe been a little short-sticked a little bit. Mm-hmm. But not horrible, but you hear murmurs of things here and there. So I don't know if that was really a part of it, but I really think he really wanted to go to bass. And I mean, for years, you kind of heard the bass is top dog. FLW was not the same.
No question.
I don't think that's the truth, but that's kind of the stigma it had.
So I read an article, and not to go off on too far of a tangent, but to your point here about that, you can go back as early as, and I'm betting it goes even further back to this, like 2002, 2003 articles where the anglers were not happy with bass and FLW. The anglers were not happy, and they were talking about the payouts. They were talking about schedules. They were talking about the anglers having an opportunity to give input into what happens. This is not something new. You know what I mean? It's like they were all, Iaconelli was one of the most vocal against bass back in the like 04, 05. After he got his win, it gave him even bigger stage. And they were all about, the anglers' futures. Well, there was an article wrote out there, and it really I bounced this off of Mike McClelland and Matt Staffen, and they both agreed with me on this, or not agreed with me, but with what this author's opinion was. The rule used to be, if you want to make money, go fish the FLW. But if you want to make a name for yourself, you got to go fish bass. For the longest time, the FLW paid out more. It paid further down. And this was even during the highlight. But the difference was the biggest name in the sport, those names were all in bass.
Yep.
When those 80 anglers jumped ship, and left, that changed everything up in there. So, yeah, I mean, we're kind of, not to kick a dead horse or anything, but to me, I wonder, because I'll tell you, previously, any FLW event going on, Martin is in everybody's talk list, but neither you nor I even brought him into this thing. And this is arguably one of the best anglers on the planet, from the last 20 years. I mean, the guy shows he can, I mean, if what we do to measure anglers is their career winnings, because that's really in their wins, he's got to be in your conversation, right? I mean, the guy's got a
I
resume
think so.
that is, but it's like,
What are you, 7-time FLW champion? And how many has he won more than one Forest Wood Cup?
you know what? I don't have his direct resume right in front of me here, but it's that those numbers sound very similar. I mean, yes, he's, like I said, I believe he was the most career winnings wise, the most successful in FLW. Or that might have actually been Andy Morgan as well. He actually was right up there with him in those as well. But yeah, I just, sooner or later, I just feel like if Martin gets schedules or gets something figured out mentally, if he gets in his game, that elite field, in my opinion, is in trouble. Cause I mean, he's going to be one of those names like the Swindell, right. If Gerald still has the fire, if G still wants to, get underneath things, I mean, dude's been doing it a lot of years, man. So you got to figure sooner or later, your decisions change if, throughout that time. But yeah, I just think that you're going to have, Martin's going to be in that, field of decision sooner or later.
Well, I think he will. And I think he probably is one you're going to want to watch for this tournament, because there's been a lot of times that the FLW has been to Hartwell.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
been there. I mean, he's competed there. He knows stuff on the lake. So he's going to be one to keep an eye on too.
For sure. And beyond that, I mean, I'm looking through the entire field. I mean, you got some legendary names in there. I mean, the big surprise, to be honest with you, is where Iaconelli's at on the season. I believe that's another name. Don't count out just yet. As up and down as dude, appears to be on the camera, so can his results be. He can tank, but then come back the next week and just wipe the floor with people, and just when he gets in an area, I think that's another. Justin Atkins, who I actually know, that guy, I mean, that's, he's definitely, I would call him, I don't know if Hartwell fits his wheelhouse, but that's a guy he can find fish, but I think you could say the same for pretty much every one of these guys in the field, that are going to be in there.
Right.
So this brings us basically towards the end of the breakdown piece here. I think one other notable piece of news we have coming out of Bassland there is at the beginning of this month, they announced where the 2023 Classic is going to be at. It's going to be in Knoxville, Tennessee. The last time they were there was in 2019, and Ott Defoe won his first and only Classic. The last one with all those. So 2019 Bass Pro Tour had already begun, but the year previous, all those guys that had left for the Bass Pro Tour were still qualified in. Yep. So he won it against, the best of the best that were in that field.
Yep.
Out there. And so this was, to date, that event has been the biggest, most attended event in Bass history. Was that Classic because another piece to this, they hold the exhibit at the World Fair exhibit piece. Oh, really? So it's a huge deal. It'll be curious to see what the turnout looks like this next year for that.
Right. I'm going to try and go to that one. I was going to go to this one this year and I just couldn't make it work.
Right.
But I'm going to go next year. I think I really want to go. It's like an 18-hour drive and I didn't have the time and whatever to do it this year, but
that whole real life thing
for next year. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. And it's it'll be curious to see how that plays out and who they have in the field, going into that and what that attendance piece looks like. They always bring this up. There's ups, there's downs with with what Bass is doing. Bottom line is there are 3 major Super Bowls that take place in our sport right now. That's just the way it is. You got the Classic, probably the most known is the Bassmaster Classic. You got the Tackle Warehouse title that goes on the championship for the pro circuit, and then of course Red Crest coming up at the end of this month. You and I hopefully will get a chance to get back together for that, right. And we'll preview some Red Crest.
To help me with some of that because I haven't been following that as much. I used to follow it all, but God, it's hard to follow it all.
It is. It is. The bottom line is it's, right now it's all the names that you're used to. And then they've got a few new guys that are coming on the scene. Of course, I don't care what, organization you're talking about. You mentioned the guy's name and people across the entire, competitive scene know him, and that's Wheeler. I mean, this guy is
Yep.
on a different planet, man. Guys
Yep.
old and guys young are looking at him going, what are you doing, man? He's got something dialed in.
Yeah, he
It
does.
doesn't matter where he goes. What you want to go frog fishing? No problem. You want to get out on a 35-foot bite? No problem. He's got you there
Very,
too.
very versatile.
Yeah. And so, he's starting off very similar. He's having another year like that. He's started where he left off for sure.
Yep.
So yeah, that'll be awesome. All right, man. So let's get to our angler picks. So here's what our bet is. We decided off the air. So my man, Jay, is up in Minnesota. It is hockey season. Of course, I'm out in Colorado. There is kind of we're in the same, same division there. There is kind of a rivalry between the Wild and the Avalanche. They tend to, have some heated games. So what we decided was the loser is going to have to make a Facebook post with the other guy's hockey team logo and give a little hashtag chant, to this thing. So that's what's on the line, for us here. So what it's going to do is we're each going to pick, and we can pick the same guys, that would really suck because then we wouldn't have a winner.
That would make it very fun.
No. But I mean, if there's some overlap, there can be overlap. We're going to pick two anglers, and based on their position, where they end up, the guy with the lowest score is going to win. The other guy's going to have to do the logo of shame on Facebook.
It'll probably be me because I know what you're going to do. And
Yep. I was going to say,
I'm going to go be contrarian, and I'm going to go.
All right. Who you got?
I am going to go Porosnik.
Good call.
And then I'm going to take, and it might bite me, but because I know how much Gustafson likes those spots, I'm going to take Jeff Gustafson.
Yep. Dude, I think those are solid picks. I mean, this sport, dude. I mean, anything can happen any given time. And both of those guys, there are deep arguments as to how they can pull this thing off. No excitement, no buildup on mine. I already kind of openly admitted mine to John Cox, Jason Christie.
I think they're both going to have a great tournament. I really do.
Yeah, they, I think, and the same. I mean, just when we think, I don't know if you caught any of the MPFL, those guys got the raw end of the deal there. The weather kind of blew them out. They literally, instead of a 3-day event, it got turned into a 1-day, $50,000 shootout. And I'll tell you what, man, those guys, oh man. And we've been there. We've been in these kind of tournaments, but I want to say that there was one guy that of course fat sacked the thing. And Taylor Watkins, I believe is the last name. He put up 23 pounds. But then I'm not kidding you. I bet you we can count on one hand the number of guys that caught 5 fish limit. And these are some damn good hooks, man. That place was beating these guys up. There were so many 1-2 fish limits being brought in, some 85, 90 guys weighed in.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a rough tournament. So who knows?
Did you hear about Patrick Walters?
Walters,
he was supposed to fish that NPFL.
Oh, right.
And so he was all the way in Kentucky and goes, oh shit, practice for the Classic starts tomorrow. And had to drive all the way back.
Oh, no. You heard it here first, folks.
So yeah,
I had no idea.
It was on BTL, I think, they talked about it, but I heard it and I was like, you gotta be kidding. He's a guy, he's trying to fish that NPFL a little bit.
Yep.
He fishes opens and then he fishes the elites, and he's another one of them guys that he's really good and he does a lot. And he's one of the guys that I think might do good in this tournament too. But yeah, if he'd have missed practice, that'd have been a bummer for him.
Yeah, no, I think if you have to make a choice, that's an easy decision there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's and that's that was one of the things I was very glad to see. And I really doubt there was any conversation about it. But I was very glad that Red Crest was at the end of the month and the Classic was at the beginning. There is something going on Bass Pro Tour wise that's going to keep literally, I think, all of these guys out of the expo, though. I think there's an event taking place on the MLF side you're not going to see, which is going to be odd, man. You're not going to see Kevin Van Dam. You're not going to see Edwin Evers, Ott Defoe, and those guys, because they're going to be at the other deal. Sooner or later, hopefully, for the sake of the sport, for the sake of the sponsors, hopefully these organizations can find some ground, to work together with, because hey, have multiple. That's fine. Competition's healthy. It's good.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I just don't see the benefit to either of them when they're trying to stack.
I was going to say
and stuff. They're just hurting each other's viewer. I mean, they're hurting their own viewership too.
And I go even to the point of saying, I don't think anybody's maliciously sitting behind going, you get the trolls online that, for whatever reason, don't like Boyd Duckett. And they, well, Boyd, that's just the way he is. Come on, folks. Trust me. He's got way bigger fish to fry than going, when is their tournament? No, I know that's easy for a lot of the simpleton brains to wrap their head around. They think it's that simple, but that's just, you're so stretched out with this. But I think the problem exists is that they literally they don't care what the other one's doing. You know what I mean? It's like, we're setting our schedule. Oh, did they set it the same date? Well, okay, great. I think that's probably happening. And sooner or later, the sponsorship, there's only so much money, man, and these anglers are already stretched so damn thin. Take it from a guy who's trying to make a living at, that's one piece of our business. There's no business model that shows that it's a smart move. There just isn't,
and I don't know about you, man, but breaking even is a damn good year.
If you can, yeah.
That's what I mean. That's a really good year. So put that in perspective. Oh, you had a great year. You won tournaments. Yeah, I broke even. Ain't that nice?
Exactly.
Between entry fees and fuel now going up in price and lodging and all. I mean,
yeah,
man, one tournament down the Mississippi River last year, I put in, I think, just in practice, like $280 in fuel in the boat.
Yes, sir.
I mean,
just in the boat.
A lot of fuel, man.
Yeah. No, that's each one of our trips that we take, like even at the BFL level. I mean, it doesn't matter what level you're paying at. If you're traveling to go to an event, you're traveling and the costs are identical. The only thing that changes is how much money's on the line and how much you have to pay to entry fee. Yep. Which is why we stay at the BFL level, because it's like, hey, when my winnings can pay for Toyota, that's when we go there. And if they don't pay for it, same for us.
That's and kind of what I'm doing too.
Each one of those events, it's over $1,000 if I'm staying in a hotel, because, and I try to thin it down. I don't practice. Some guys like to practice an entire week. I get spun out when I do that. So I put myself in a 2 to 3 day window of practice and then tournament day. That's where I feel
myself 3 days, man. I mean, I feel like that's a good amount. And the thing is, you get too far removed from your tournament day or your practice day to the beginning of the tournament. Like, oh, well, a week ago Monday, I caught this on this over here. Well, them fish are the changed, man. It's the change is too fast. And so I try to, and then the other thing is, if I can stay on a 3 day practice schedule and where I can dial in my practice strategy, how I'm practicing, that works for me, I can be successful. Well, I can move up to the next level or any level and be competitive. I'm not, oh yeah, I won a tournament, but I had 10 days of practice. If you need to be able to be competitive with 3 days of practice, I think
you just hit the nail on the head, Jay. And that is, what's your next level that you want to be at? Well, then learn what those practice requirements are and get that efficient at this lower level. So when you do go there, you don't have that culture shock piece. Right. But to go back to the point, by the time you do that, you're over $1,000 in gas, food, lodging. I mean, this stuff is not cheap to try to make these. So yeah, it's, I just hope for that sake, that the sport continues to work it out. I mean, there's a lot of options that, guys could go with, but at the same note, sometimes competition is a good thing, because it's the cool thing that you can actually say is that regardless if people like, formats or not, bass changed. after these guys left. They changed how they go about things. They changed their payouts. They changed. And these were all topics that these big guns had been raising as problems for the longest time leading up.
Yeah,
so one way or another, it changed. And plus, like I've always said this, those guys that went to the MLF side and created the Bass Pro Tour, look at all the doors they opened up. You know, we just got done saying how many local guys, you know, and I mean, no disrespect to them, but I mean, if let's be honest, put 10 of those guys, you know, back in the field, put the Evers, the Van Dams, you know, those guys, and you're going to lose 10 other guys. Okay. Because there's only so many slots that can be filled. So the cool thing is we're seeing a bunch of these guys that, you know, from around the country that are getting a shot at the highest level there. So I think there's good stuff there, but I digress. I
think so too.
So what does,
I'm looking forward to getting into the season, man. I'm sick of sitting looking at ice.
I was going to say, you and I, you know, I moved 1,000 miles away, but I'm still in the same thing. We have off seasons. The Southern guys right now are looking at us like, you have what?
Yeah,
but we have off seasons. It's when the hard water takes over. So what does your upcoming season look like? You're working in a normal job, you got a little family, you're a busy dude. What is your fishing season looking like this year?
There's still a few things up in the air. Possible a couple of BFLs depending on time. Obviously with gas prices, how much I want to travel to go to those. And that kind of comes down to a lot of little dinky weekend little derbies that are you're fishing for $200-300. Well, if I got to spend $100 in gas to get there, then it really ain't worth me going, you know. So I'm not fishing anything little, really. I mean, maybe I might jump in a couple because they're at the lake 5 minutes down the road. But other than that, I'm fishing stuff that's paying out some better money. I'm fishing the Minnesota Team Trail.
Nice.
I'm fishing the Blackfish Classic.
You are fishing that?
Yep.
I actually really was considering trying to find a partner for that and coming back for that. I've been with All Terrain and Blackfish for a lot of years. And so, yeah, I would love to every year that they'd have it. I was either down in the Ozarks or I was down in La Crosse, you know, doing one of those events. So it always crossed over.
Yep.
But yeah,
and that's kind of cool. They're having it on a Monday.
Very smart.
Hopefully the boater traffic won't be so bad.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm fishing that.
Nice.
And I'm looking forward to that a lot. You'd be surprised, but for the proximity I live to Minnetonka, I've never fished there. So I just never got down there. I was always going up to Mille Lacs or fishing North Metro or whatever. But so
traffic has a lot of pressure. I mean, that place is just beat on. Like 7 days a week, there's at least 9 tournaments going on, maybe 10, you know? So, yeah.
Yep. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm going to spend a lot of time up there. I'm going to do a lot of graphing and stuff like that and see what I can do. I'm looking forward to that. That's a big payout one, so I don't mind spending a little bit of money on trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, so those are the biggest tournaments I have going. I'm fishing the Frankie's Pro Team tournament.
Nice.
Fished that last year.
There's some good hooks in that one.
Oh yeah, I had a really good day one, and then couldn't keep fish hooked up on day 2.
Oh,
so I cost myself. We were sitting in 5th place overall after day 1. It's a 4-fish tournament. We weighed almost 16 pounds for 4 fish.
Wow.
And so I think we were sitting like less than a half a pound out of 3rd. And we went out on day 2 because it fishes one day on one lake. So they split the field. Half the field goes to one lake, half the field goes the other. And then day 2, you switch.
Oh, okay.
We ran out to the first spot. First cast, I threw a crankbait out there, reeling in, hooked up on a nice one, like 3.5 pounder.
Jeez.
He must have just swiped on it or whatever, because he comes up to the side of the boat. He's got it all inside of his face, right? And he thrashes, and that crankbait comes off. I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. And then I lost another one on a chatterbait later that day. And I don't lose fish on a chatterbait usually. So it's like, what the heck? But I made a 5-pound call, 4.5-pound call with 10 minutes before check-in. So it kind of salvaged the day a little bit, caught a big one, and then we still missed the top 10 after that. But yeah, I was frustrating. We grounded out, man. It was tough, and it was windy, and we were fishing on my buddy's boat because I didn't have my boat last year because my power had issues, and he didn't have spot lock.
Oh, so no.
I was running the trolling motor. I spent all day up there on 100, never took my foot off the pedal, man, just to keep us in place. It was
Good
bad. I spent more time looking at the graph and trying to make sure I kept on the trolling motor in the right spot than I did fishing. It
had a Fortrex, I take it?
Yep.
I remember those days. That's why I hated offshore fishing.
Yep. I told my buddy, I said, I'm never fishing another tournament without a spot lock ever.
Isn't it? I mean, you hear guys out there wonk and complain about technology, forward facing sonar is the most recent thing. People think it's all cheating, this or that. And I mean, it's just like anything and everything else, but man, after you fish with it and it's an option, it really gets inside your head and just twists you up if you don't have it. I mean, right. I couldn't imagine being able to fish without anchor lock on the Garmin Force. For me, also on the Mississippi River, all the fishing we did down there, without my power poles, I'd be tangled up around 62 different strainers. Without my power poles, I had gotten to the point where I could position those, let the current take me where I needed to, drag them in, dig in, and let the bow swing get me right where I needed to be. I can't imagine, being without those.
I know.
Fishing in a boat.
Yeah, I got the Talons. I got 12 footers on my boat, and then I got the spot lock at Ultrex, and I love it, man. And a lot of guys, and I was watching another podcast actually, and they were talking about this forward-facing sonar, that the guys that are growing up with it are going to be really good with it.
Oh yeah.
But what happens if they do take it away?
Yeah, it'll just be a matter of time. And I don't see them. There's nothing about it other than just being real time. You know what I mean?
Right. I don't see them taking it away. Nah. But it's what about the guys that are so getting locked in and this is all they've known?
Sure.
What happens if they go to something and they decide that it's not allowed at a certain level, like an Alabama rig?
Yep.
I mean, how many guys fish an Alabama rig and it's not allowed in a lot of stuff now? And it's just, I think the guys that are well-rounded before it are going to be the guys that are going to be okay if something does come down the line.
I think the different piece though, because I've heard that argument a couple times, and here's the thing. The Alabama rig doesn't help you find them any faster.
Oh, no.
And it doesn't make you any more or less efficient on a given spot. If you get on them, if you find them, in some cases, it's the difference between catching them and not catching them.
Oh yeah.
I'll give you that. With the forward-facing sonar, if we watch like what just happened, the MPFL, you watch those guys. I watched the Bass Pro Tour, actually watching a Heritage Cup that just took place. Zach Burge was one of the best examples. He's going through this stump field, right? Deadheads as far as the camera can see. He's not casting. He's watching his forward-facing sonar, and he flat out said, unless I see one, I'm not casting. The difference is, like a guy like me, who, yes, I'm, one of the rare few people. I still don't have Panoptics. I've chosen mine. Okay, let's talk. But yeah,
mine might be for sale. Just you might be.
The difference is I'm going into that stump field and I'm casting. Yep. Where the guys that have that forward-facing sonar, he's in the area that he thinks they're going to be, but he's more efficient in the fact that he can look at the brush pile and see if there's activity. Still doesn't mean that, there's always that one not moving that blends in and, you're going to drag a jig and bang, you can connect up when you didn't see one. but it's just an efficiency thing in my opinion. It doesn't, I don't think it doesn't help you catch them any faster. You just find them, which tends to be the hardest part of my personal opinion is the finding them. Where
and I'll
are
be
they?
honest with you. I think what's helped me more than the live scope has been my 360.
Okay. Yep.
To be perfectly honest, I mean, I can see fish on the 360.
Nice.
I can see the fish on structure. It's
Right.
harder on some types of structure just because of the hard return you get from like rock and stuff.
Right.
But man, I don't know if I could fish without a 360 anymore. It's unbelievable. It's just like having side imaging. You can see it. It updates constantly.
Yep.
But I can sit back off a weed line.
Yep.
More efficient with that than I can. I mean, maybe live scope, you can see the weeds and see the grass and stuff like that. But if you're just running 2D sonar and you're just, the grass line should be in 8 or 9 feet of water. Well, I can be like, the grass line's in 8 or 9 feet of water, but it cuts in 4 feet.
I was going to say
there.
It does an S, that you can see. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll be perfectly honest. I've caught more fish. I can guarantee you there's been fish I've caught with that 360 that I wouldn't have caught otherwise.
Right.
And some of it's been as easy as going down, coming out on a point, following a grass line. And on the end of the point, there's a little bit harder bottom, some sand, and there's freaking bunch of bluegill beds.
Yep.
Well, I've seen some fish out there. So I pulled way off and made a long cast with a jig, freaking one after another off. They're not on grass. They're just relating to them bluegill beds because them bluegills are out there and that it was in like 16 feet of water in clear water spawning.
Yep.
If I'd have been just wallowing a grass line, I'd have never known they were there.
It's that point that it helps you find them. The smart guys like the Jacob Wheelers, the Dustin Connells, the guys that are picking this stuff up, that next generation, they're combining the piece. They're using this stuff to teach them, this is so that way they can look at their topos, they can make a run to these spots and just get there. That's what, Wheeler is not just, looking at a screen and getting lucky. You know what I mean? He knows what to look for and he's learning more and more. That's why he's got all 3 manufacturers still sitting on his boat. He's still using everybody's technology out there. And so it's cool to kind of see that unfold, and
some of it is knowing when to not.
Yeah. Anyway.
Like for me, if I come up with something and I figure out a pattern, shallow, grass, whatever, I take my live scope off.
Yep.
I have my graph separate. It's on a removable pedestal that I can elevate. So I'm not sitting there like this the whole time. I can look at it a decent time and not have back problems. But I can quick disconnect that, unhook it, and pull the whole screen off. And I go fish that way because sometimes you just have to know. Sometimes there's times to use it. There's sometimes to just fish.
Well, and that's that personal piece, whatever you're most comfortable with, right?
Right.
I mean, that's the deal. Don't you have that you've got that setup that Watson promotes, don't you?
Similar. Yep. Same base, but I don't have it double mounted. I just have one graph on it, running 2. But I have that beat down outdoors mount, and I really like that just because I can get the graphs up in front of me. And I've thought about putting my 360 graph on with my live scope just to get it up because it's closer. You can see the detail because I find myself bending down to look at it, the 360. Yep. So I've thought about that because it is nice to not have to stare straight at the floor. I can bring it up almost waist high if I want, Well,
you're still a young man though. So, you won't have the back problems like us old farts, I'd be a little
but I don't want a back problem. So I'm trying to be some preventative here.
I hear you.
So.
All right, man. Well, listen, it's been awesome talking fishing. I'm sure we could talk all night, but we're going to go ahead and wrap up the podcast here.
I'm sure we could.
Jason, thank you so very much, dude. This was a ton of fun. We need to start doing this more often for this season. Absolutely. We can grab any event. We'll grab hot topics. You're a hell of a hook. Love fishing with you. When I get up there, we've said this several times. We talked about it. I don't know if our schedules are going to cross over or not when I'm up in that neck of the woods, but if things go right, I want to actually try to put together a Romans Warrior Foundation retreat up there And that would be just, I mean, if we could get, 3-4 guys together with boats, take 3-4 vets out onto, one of those northern metro lakes up there during the week, get them out, get them on some of those natural lakes or whatever. That would just, I think, be quite the treat, especially if we can bring some guys from the south or maybe out west, bring them up there and show them what some good northern fishing looks like up there. That'd be a lot of fun.
It can be very good.
Yeah, for sure.
They can be stingy on days. Very good.
Especially in the metro area. I remember that.
Yep. Well, I appreciate you having me on, Gene.
You bet, man. We sincerely appreciate it, and we'll definitely get this going, folks. Thanks for tuning in here to our special little fishing edition here. Stick with us. Make sure when you're out at the channel there, True Patriot Outfitters, give us a subscribe, mash the like button. All these things, super big help. As always, folks, tight lines and be safe.